Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you already know, this is your U.S. General 5-drawer tool cart with side tray and deep compartment. Today is Friday, as you can see. We still over at the storage unit, getting back to it, still getting busy. Okay, we still here. I'm still taking a look at a couple of things. So while in the process, I figured here, let me get this footage and this content out to the people real quick. If you follow the videos and you follow the content, you would know in my last couple of previous videos that I've been putting out, I've been talking and demonstrating upon the Astro pneumatic nano impact sockets, okay, testically compared to using that brand socket with particular brands of either cordless tools or pneumatic air tools, okay. There's something that I want to show real quick as a follow-up to those last two previous videos, just to give you a visual demonstration of what I was explaining and trying to show in those particular videos, all right? But I ain't gonna hold you up too much more longer in the introductory of things, okay? But as I always state, as usual, I always keep my signature lingering somewhere in the background. My Dunkin' Donuts coffee. You already know, okay? So pretty much I'm going to get some contents out to the top of the tool cart. We're going to take a look at things real quick, all right? We're going to keep this brief and simple, all right? So walk with me. Let's get it. Okay, for this little simple demonstration, I didn't feel the need, to get out all the necessary tools that I pulled out in the last two previous videos, such as the Milwaukee right angle impact and the Ingersoll Rand 3/8 stubby, okay? But what you are taking a look at here, I did pull out the Milwaukee 3/8 stubby, just as well as I have out three specific Astro pneumatic nano impact sockets, okay? I do keep extra hardware, in my supply of equipment and things like that. Technically I didn't think to do this in the first two videos, okay, because those videos were technically stretching out a little long, all right? But as you can see here, all right, that is a 14 millimeter Astro pneumatic nano impact socket, just as well as this is a 17 millimeter Astro pneumatic, okay? And as you can see here is a 19 millimeter. At the prior moment, all right, I'm using plug fasteners, okay? Not your normal standard lugs or, your normal standard fasteners at the prior moment, all right? So if you took notice to the first two videos when I gave the visual with the sockets testically compared to being applied to the anvil of either the Milwaukee 3/8 stubby impact or the right angle impact, just as well as the Ingersoll Rand, all right? In those previous videos, you've seen that the anvil exceeded the inner portion and inner drive size of the sockets, which these are all 3/8 drive sockets, okay? So if you didn't see that in those last two previous videos, I am going to give you a very brief quick shot of that and how it looks, okay? So let's get it. Okay, now that I technically have a socket applied to the anvil, and to give you a very up close shot, okay, so that now that you can basically see the friction ring is exceeding the inner portion of the socket, okay? And as you can see here, as I'm shifting, okay, and moving the friction ring. Now, in those previous videos, what I was basically talking about is that due to the fact that the anvil, okay, is exceeding the inner portion of the socket, and it allows a fastener to sit correctly within the socket and seat within the socket. So now I'm going to get this socket off the impact gun real quick and give you a visual to a fastener actually being in this particular socket. All right, let's get it. Okay, so now as you see the socket, okay, and then you see how I'm placing the fastener, all right, within the socket, because I want you to be able to take a good look at this, okay? So now that you see that it's completely flushed, okay, within the socket, now what I want to show, okay, is another shot towards the inside, because there's like a slight gap. I don't know whether you're going to be able to tell, but there is a slight gap in between the back end of the inner portion of the socket, in between the fastener. It's not much of a gap. Let me see if I can get in the light, get it closer towards the light for you to see. But it's not much of a gap, but it is a slight gap. Okay, but as you can see, the fastener is flush in the socket. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this socket back on an anvil, okay, so that you can see once the anvil is exceeding the inner portion of the socket, we're going to place this fastener on the socket. So let's get it. Okay, now we got our socket back on the 3/8 stubby, and once again, to give you the visual so that you know that there's nothing in between or nothing blocking. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this fastener within the socket, okay, to give you a good clear vision. Okay, so now you can see with the anvil exceeding, okay, you can see that the fastener is not actually sitting flush, all right, within the socket. Another thing is, you see this play here, okay? Now, there was a difference when I was explaining this between using the stubby, okay, which is handheld, more like a regular normal standard impact gun, which this is cordless. And the design of this Milwaukee 3/8 stubby is different from the right angle impact driver. Okay, so when using that particular tool, it needs to be held a certain way. So when accessing certain particular fasteners, if so to say, you weren't being able to go head in, and say, for instance, you needed to use the tool and get in on an angle, okay, and say that the anvil was exceeding within the inner portion, okay, of the socket, as you can see here. All right, there is a gap, and once again, you can see the play, all right, within the socket. So on a right angle impact, it could be a possibility, all right, that corners could get sheared off. And what happened is, as the tool is driving, it could possibly, okay, round something off. But this is just to give you a good example of that. What I have seen on some of the other sockets is that there was more of a gap in between the fastener and the socket itself. So we're going to take a look at that also real quick. Okay, what you're taking a look at here, this is the 17 millimeter. All right. And when I tried to show the example of without this socket being on an anvil, okay, and with this fastener just seated correctly within the socket, there was a little slight gap in between the fastener seating down inside the socket. On this particular 17 millimeter, all right, there's a whole lot much more distance with the gap in it. If I can get the light to be able to get the right angle in order for you to see it. Hold on a second. See if we can get in there. It will show it. It's not easy to do this without the proper lighting. Let me see. Or the right angle in order for you to see it. Okay, I don't know if that's a good shot, but if you can see the back end portion of the fastener and you take a good look at the right hand side of the corner of the inner portion of the socket, you can see that there's a big gap between the fastener and the back end of the socket, which is a whole lot much more than this particular 19 millimeter. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to get this 17 millimeter on the anvil to get the same demonstration when the anvil is exceeding the socket and how much this fastener will stick out, like this particular one. Okay, now that you see that I have the 17 millimeter on the 3/8 stubby, okay, this is what I just came to learn. Okay, see, so now on the 17 millimeter, as you can see, it's completely flush and the anvil is exceeding, okay, the socket. But see, this is the difference between the 17 millimeter and the 19 millimeter. Okay, as I just stated, that on the 17 millimeter right here, there was more of a distance and more of a gap towards the inner portion between the fastener and the socket. And as you can see, now that the socket is on an anvil, you can see that the fastener is actually flush. Okay. All right, now what we're taking a look at is the 14 millimeter. All right, and just as well as the 17 millimeter has a gap. All right, you can see that the fastener is sitting flush within the socket. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to give you the same shot so that you can see that there is distance between the fastener and the inner portion of the socket. And on this particular one, there's a whole lot much more. See if you can see that there. If you can see the corner and take a good look at the fastener, all right, you can see that there's a gap in between the back end portion of the fastener sitting within inside, okay, the socket. So now I'm going to get this socket on the anvil so that we can take a good look. All right, so now we got our 14 millimeter on the anvil, all right, and now I'm going to place the fastener within the socket. And if you notice, it's in flush, all right, but there's still a gap in between this particular fastener and it's pushed all the way down. All right, you can see the little play, all right, not from sock, but you can see how it's rocking back and forth. All right, now on a 17 millimeter, you didn't see this. There was actually no gap, and here's the 17 millimeter here. Okay, and you see how flush flat it's sitting within inside the socket. This is how it appeared to be on the anvil. All right, we'll give you a good look again, all right, amongst these two just as well. But once again, just to take notice, okay, to the gap and how it's not sitting all the way downwards. Okay. All right, so once again, here's your 17 millimeter. And as you can see, there's absolutely no gap. Okay. On the 17 millimeter, it is seating the way that it's supposed to be seating. Okay, now once again, back to your 19 millimeter. As you can see, all right, you can see everything nice and clear. You can see the friction ring exceeding the inner portion of the socket. Okay, so now as I'm placing it, and now you see the gap. Okay, and once again, you see this. So when I was showing this with the right angle impact, okay, the first time I noticed the stubby impact, it exceeded the inner portions of the socket more than the right angle impact, but it wasn't really too much of a difference. Just as well as the Ingersoll ran, 3/8 stubby. I pointed this out just in case, it becomes an issue of somewhere somehow individuals use these sockets and they run into an issue where they tend to round something off, and then they don't understand because they overlook the issue of the anvil actually exceeding the inner portion of the socket itself. All right. But this is just to go a little bit more further into depth with basically what I was explaining in those two particular videos. All right. Okay, so one last shot, just to show you how they are all seating properly. If you take notice to the 14 millimeter over here, all right, and I'm putting force down on this. I'm putting force down, and I'm not forcing it into the socket, as you can see, right? And you can still see a gap, all right, where that is seating at the back, but for some reason there's technically still a gap. This could be how they were machined or something like that, all right? But if you notice on a 19 millimeter, it is completely flush, all right? Completely, just as well as that 17 millimeter, all right? So pretty much, that's what I just wanted to demonstrate real quick before I wrap this, part of the day up and things of that nature. All right. Okay, so pretty much, I'm about to end this video here. All right. I'm going to leave, the viewers up to decide, for themselves as far as what they just basically seen visually. It's just some information, some things that I just happen to come across just, to put out there for the people in the tool community and things of that nature. All right. Once again, today is Friday. Everybody enjoy the rest of their evening. Have a safe and a blessed one. Have a good weekend just as well. All right. To that next tool review, that next tool haul, that next modification video, you already know. We gonna check you later. Peace.